Testing 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2. Testing 1 2 2 2 2. Testing 1 2 2 2 2
recursive.
Testing 1 2 2 2 2. Testing 1 2 2 2 2
recursive.
Testing 1 2 2 2 2. Testing 1
All right.
recursive. Testing 1 2 2 2 2. Testing 1
All right.
recursive. Testing 1 2 2 2 2. Testing
All right.
All right, hi everybody. How you doing? Just getting everything sorted out here. Just let us know, everybody. How you doing? Chat if you can. Getting everything see me sorted out here. Hear me okay? Just and you can see let us know, everybody. The Ask Method Chat if you
Masterclass
getting everything
on your
screen.
screen.
Hear me okay? And you can see
let us know,
the Ask Method
Masterclass on your screen.
Hear me okay? And you can see
Headphones in so I can hear myself.
Masterclass
on your screen.
Hear me okay?
Headphones in so I can hear myself.
Masterclass. I just realised that I had myself on there, so sorry about that. Okay, yeah, major echo. Hopefully that should have stopped as of now. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Yeah, sorry about that. That was I'd forgotten to pause the other YouTube. So sorry about that. Should be all right now. Excellent. Very good. Now I'm just going to go quiet for a second and I just want to test the audio on the video to make sure you guys can hear that. It will be lower than my levels, okay? Nothing I can do about that, but it should be listenable.
Hey, this is Ryan Levesque here again. I'm the creator of the Ask Method Masterclass, and I'd like to welcome you to the second of 4 videos in this free Ask Method workshop.
Hey, Ryan.
The Ask Method phenomenon
hey, buddy.
is
Nice shorts,
revolutionizing
pal.
the way entrepreneurs
Not many people
and
can carry
companies
off shorts like that.
everywhere are launching and growing their businesses online. The Ask Method is all about taking people who land on your website.
Okay,
and
again, can you
instead of
hear that
treating
video
them
all
in a
right?
one-size-fits-all way, it's about putting them into different groups or buckets, as we call them, so that you can communicate with each of these groups in a more
let me know in the
targeted
chat.
way. It all starts with asking questions to figure out.
Fantastic. Excellent. All good. Okay, we've got our just got to ride that volume fader there so we make sure that's all right. Fantastic. Very good. All right, I wonder what Ryan's got in store for us today. Have you, hopefully you've got your workbooks downloaded as well. So, you know, I'm genuinely hoping that you're doing this along with me. So make sure that you've got that. Excellent. Very good. Now we'll just wait for we'll kick off in a few minutes' time here. We'll just do some tests. And while you're here as well, if you haven't subscribed and then hit the bell button, now would be a really good time to do so you can get notified of things like these live streams. And some of you would have experienced getting the, we've set up a Facebook Messenger channel so that if you want to get notifications of when I do an important piece of challenge content, I'll literally send you a message out on Facebook Messenger. That seemed to be working pretty well for people who signed up to that yesterday. Cool. Just watching those chat messages come through. live chat. Ah, there we are. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know there was a difference. Oh, I better rewind this, make sure we're back at the start. Excellent. So we'll start at the top of the hour here, where it's getting going. If you're watching this on replay for some reason, you probably want to fast forward about 3 minutes. Tell you what, it's a cold old day here in Melbourne, let me tell you. So hopefully you've got some pen and paper so you can do your workings and scratchings, and you've got access to the workbook either digitally or printouts. That will be excellent. So we're prepped for a good session. I'll be working to a timer this session, so it'll be it'll be like a MasterChef challenge. Good stuff, Leslie. That's awesome. Has anybody had a sneak peek at the video yet? I haven't seen it yet, so well, I'm going in cold. All right, we've got about a minute to go, and we will get started with this session. Let's pump up my video speed. What speed did you guys have a play around with speeding up your videos during the week? Did you use that little tip at any point? Maybe on one of mine, which is good. I fully encourage it. Yeah, I can typically, when I'm learning something, I can typically do 1.5 quite comfortably. 1.5 is my sort of sweet spot. All right, let's get cracking. Let's do this. I'm just going to go quiet for a second so I can mark the edit for everything, and we will get started with all of this. So I'll just go silent for a sec, and then we're off. Welcome everybody to today's challenge live stream. The whole purpose of this is you watch me literally build a business, do courses in front of your eyes. There is no hiding. There is no help. It's just me, well, and you, but there's just me doing this just like you would be doing, just like you'd be working at home, just like you'd be putting things together. And there's a couple of reasons to do this. Reason one is to see how I work. I find the most fascinating things and some of the most important lessons are understanding how a professional works, because it's very, very different. As we learnt in last week's live stream, like, it was fascinating. One thing that I hadn't even considered was the fact that people, instead of just doing the task, were thinking about all the ramifications of, well, what does this task mean? What does it mean if I get a result or I don't get a result? What does it mean? How does this fit into the puzzles of what's going on for the next few weeks? You know, I'm not sure. And it's funny because that just never enters my mind. I just do the task. I trust the person that I'm doing the task, Ryan Levesque, whose course Ask Workshop we're going through. I know it works. Like, there's plenty of people where it has worked. It's been going for a good couple of years. He's an excellent educator. So I just follow along the steps. And that was really interesting. That is something I wouldn't have personally even thought of. So I'm learning a lot of stuff out of doing this as well, which is really great. But my hope for you is that as we go through this, you're doing it as well, right? You are implementing as I'm implementing. Now, I think the third workshop is coming out quite quickly. I think there's only a few days between this workshop and the third workshop. So stay tuned for I'll let you know through Facebook Messenger and through the new challenge Facebook group. If you're not a member yet of the Facebook group, very good idea to get the full benefit of this challenge. There's been some great tips and tricks already in the group, particularly this week. Really good stuff. So make sure you're a member of the group as well, and that would be awesome. And also, yeah, just keep an eye out for that, because we may be having another session quite quickly. So today, this session and all sessions in the future are going to be through a timer. And when I work it out, it'll be fun. I'll put the timer on the screen so everybody can sort of watch it. Not that advanced yet today. We're going for minimum viable live streaming right now while I get used to all the technology. But that's how I work, and that's how every professional I know works, consistently and constantly to a timer. I first learned about this with Gary Halbert, and of course, as with so many things with Gary, the science has come to prove he was absolutely correct. For a start, if you are a beginner, 50 minutes is absolutely the longest you can work effectively. Your effectiveness plummets off a cliff the moment you tick over 50 minutes. If you're an incredible professional, has been doing this for ages, 2 hours is the max, but it's actually better to do 50 minutes than a 10-minute break and then 50 minutes. It's also the rule of constraints, where we have a constraint. We basically live in a world of no constraints. So if you can say to yourself, okay, I can stick this task for 50 minutes and I can turn on do not disturb for 50 minutes, and I can, make sure that nobody interrupts me for 50 minutes, that helps you do that. And the third element of this is the MasterChef principle. You may have heard me talk about this before, but I love a mystery box challenge. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, over the years in various cooking shows, where they lift the box up and, oh, look, there's a beetroot, a raw cabbage, and some lamb mince, and they have to come up with a really great, dish in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And it always amazes me that of all the times I've watched those, I can only think of 1 or 2 times where somebody has literally walked up to the judges with a blank plate. Now, of course, there are plenty of times where people have walked up to the judges with something that's horrendous, but they always, as they say in the industry, have plated up. And that is really, really crucial that they have implemented and they have done that. And it's because of the constraint and because we're doing it live. So those things are all elements to timers. So from now on, we'll be working in 50-minute sessions. So you'll hear me start the timer, and when the timer goes off, the session stops. Well, I won't literally hang up on you guys. We might do a little bit of a debrief, but we'll talk about that. Okay, so that's the first step. Now, secondly, I want to take you through some of the preparation I do when I'm doing a 50-minute session, particularly when I'm doing an implementation session like this. The first thing that I do is I have my CFT designed. I know what done looks like. Right, so I use a technique called Kanban. Again, don't worry about that if you've never heard of it right now, but I use a combination of agile technologies, and it's very important. Don't worry, we'll be definitely doing drills like this in the future about this stuff, but I use this particular technique. Now, something that you can all implement from right now is to just say to yourself before you start the 50-minute session, what does done look like for this 50-minute session, All right, that's the very first element of this. So for me, I've written here, spend 50 minutes implementing, and I crossed out working and put implementing module 2 of the Ask workshop. Now, it's as important what I didn't say there as what I did say there. Notice I didn't say finish module 2 because I have no clue. I didn't look at the video. I did have a quick look there, and the video goes for about 30 minutes, and I imagine there's probably some testimonials which I can skip over. So, but I have a 50-minute session to implement that. I don't know how long the workshop exercises in the workbook will take. They may be 5 minutes. They may take 2 hours. I don't know. So if I say to my brain that I'm going to finish module 2 and I don't finish it, even if I did amazing work and came up with a miracle $1 million idea, right? My brain, if I had the expectation, particularly written expectation, that I would finish that module, then guess what? No dopamine is released in my brain. No dopamine, the positive chemical which gets you addicted to doing things, there's positive addictions, right? And there are, which are called good habits, and there are negative addictions, which are called bad habits, or literally addictions. Addictions has a very negative, particularly in the English language, a very negative thing. But what if we can get as addicted to doing our challenge work as we do Tim Tams, right? One of those will be infinitely better for you. Okay. So that is a key thing. So I have set myself up to success, because the reason this will get moved into the done column is purely because I will spend 50 minutes working on it. Success. There's no outcome because I can't give it, because I've never done this task before. How could I possibly know if I can do it or not in that time frame? Yet so many times we set ourselves up for failure and we miss our expectation, which is at the core of the reason of why so many people have failed over the years in implementing a new business for themselves, is because their expectations are set way up here, whereas they really need to be set down here. Okay, so you can set expectations over a year, you can set expectations over a month, we can set expectations over a week, and pros set expectations in 50-minute chunks. Okay, so what is a Tim Tam, says Kenneth? The most glorious, depending on what part of the world you're from, biscuit or cookie that has ever been created. That's what a Tim Tam is. Okay, what else do we have to put together? CFT. Oh, thank you, Sirius. I'm glad you picked up my use of an abbreviation. CFT is a unit of time we use in the academy. It's called critical focus time. It's referred to the 50 minutes that we spend, that science tells us is the most amount of time a beginner in particularly can focus and produce positive creative output before they literally fall off a cliff in terms of expectation. So CFT stands for critical focus time. So just to let you know that's very cool. So what else do we have to do what do I do in terms of preparation for a work session? So we've talked about and by the way, the CFT beautifully fits on one Post-it note, right? Right? It doesn't need to be any more complex than what fits on one Post-it note. So we've got that. The next thing I have, speaking of Post-it notes, is I've got Post-it notes because of the type of productivity system I use, because the vast majority of productivity systems, and again, this is a topic for another time, the vast majority of productivity systems won't work for you as an entrepreneur, right? You are literally not wired to use an electronic organizer or any organizational system that is not purely visual. In other words, up on a poster somewhere, like as kids, we have the stickers on the fridge for good tasks. A entrepreneur cannot use let me just check in with the chat. Let's just check in with chat. And if you're watching the replay, feel free to pop it in the comments. Does this sound like you? Right? How many production systems? I haven't met a production system that I haven't loved and adored, right? Filofax, Palm Pilots, you know, all when the iPhone came out, all those cool software, getting things done, you name it, you know, all day timers, right? Franklin Covey. I've done them all. I've done them all. And guess what? It's like I set them up lovingly, get them all ready, and then I never open them again. Does that sound like you? Let us know in the chat. Oh, that's good. There's some people who've gone to the Kanban board. Fantastic. Yes, otherwise when you shut it or turn it off, it may as well not be there. Yep. Lol. Yes. Right. So what I'd use as a post-it note, like if I come up with an action point that I need to do out of my session, I've got my post-it notes here that I can just write, and then I can stick them up on my board. By the way, there is a certain percentage of entrepreneurs who can use it, very small percentage, less than 5%, but they do exist. So then, of course, I've got my 3x5 cards ready to go for wow facts, any wow facts that I get while I'm on. And again, you can use whatever, notepad, paper, but I think it's important to physically write the things down, again, because again, science tells us that we are likely to retain more information. Notice I didn't say notes. I'm not going to take notes. Ryan's created a whole workbook. Why do I need to do notes? It's a waste of time. Yeah, like I say, we're not studying for an exam. So I'm not going to do notes. I'm going to do wow facts, things that emotionally get me, whether they're to do with the Ask workshop or indeed just how Ryan is actually doing and conducting the workshop, because you know, you never know where I might be able to use that for something that I'm doing down the track. All right, let's have a look. Oh, do not disturb function. Gang, the do not disturb function on your smart device is crucial. Now, I've got an Apple Watch, so when I tap do not disturb here on the Apple Watch, all devices everywhere stop. I will not get pings, dings, or notifications until we've finished here today. All right, so do not disturb in or airplane mode if you really need to go hardcore. You know, that's really crucial for when you're doing a 50-minute session, because if you, the purpose of the other reason to get into a 50-minute session is to get into a flow state, all right, a state where you're stretching yourself to the point where you're being challenged, and you get to that point, and we've all experienced this, you know, when you're doing something and you're just in, like, you lose track of time and you're just doing it and you're getting a buzz from doing it. We've all felt that state, you know, but it's rare for most people to enter that state. Whereas and one of the main reasons in today's world that we don't get into that state is we just get dings. The moment you get a ding, your brain resets back to point one, right? It has to get into a flow state. You just can't turn a flow state on, which is an optimal learning and implementing and creative state. You have to get into it, right? You have to warm up to it. And so having a do not disturb is a really important part of the process. Okay, so in some ways, one of the deals with the devil I do with live streaming is, of course, like, I'm probably not bringing 100% creative focus to this because I'm, you know, interacting with you guys while I'm doing it, but that's because I'm teaching, right? So you'll get even better benefits when you're just doing this by yourself, as indeed do I when I'm doing my private, you know, CFTs, my critical focus times. So with that, left my flow room in another day. Yeah, that's so true. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, I think we're good to go. So I have turned on Do Not Disturb. I've got my post-it notes. I've got my 3x5 cards. We know what done's look like, which is literally to complete 15 minutes. I've got the video queued up. I've got my workbook downloaded. I've set the speed of the video up to 1.3, so we can you know, do that. So I think we're good to go. So the only thing that's left to do is Hey Siri, set a timer for 50 minutes. All right, we're off. Let's do this thing.
Hey, this is Ryan Levesque here again. I'm the creator of the Ask Method Masterclass, and I'd like to welcome you to the second of 4 videos in this free Ask Method workshop. The Ask Method phenomenon is revolutionizing the way entrepreneurs and companies everywhere are launching and growing their businesses online. The Ask Method is all about taking people who land on your website, and instead of treating them in a one-size-fits-all way, it's about putting them into different groups, or buckets as we call them, so that you can communicate with each of these groups in a more targeted way. It all starts with asking questions to figure out what buckets exist in your market, identifying what buckets you should focus on, which ones you should selectively ignore, and how to communicate with each of your buckets in a more targeted way. It's about asking questions to understand your market at a deep emotional level so that you can better sell and better serve. Now, in this video, we're gonna be talking about the 4 ways to put people into different buckets in your market, how to use the psychology of micro commitments to put people into different buckets and get more leads, the ideal number of buckets that you wanna have in your market. And then after you've identified what bucket someone falls into, we're gonna cover the #1 most important thing that you wanna customize on your website based on that person's bucket. And if you're the type of person who loves to see examples, in this video, we're gonna go through real live examples of businesses using the Ask Method, plus an Ask Method case study that generates over $3 million per year. Now, before we get started, the first thing that you wanna do is download the PDF action guide below this video so that you can take notes and follow along. And if you missed the first video in this workshop, now's the time to go back and watch that first video first, because in that video we covered what the Ask Method is and how to use it based on where you are right now in your business. We covered how world-class companies like Apple, Tesla, and Lego are using the same strategy as we speak. We covered the major shift that's happening right now online that makes it the best time in history to be using the Ask Method. We covered 3 simple words that you can type into Google right now today to figure out what buckets exist in your market or any market that you might be curious about. We even took a look at a few of the thousands of entrepreneurs who are using the Ask Method in market after market right now as we speak, building businesses that provide predictable, consistent income each month, financial security, the freedom to take time off, and the ability to make a massive, lasting impact. You can find the link to this first video at the top of this page. If you didn't get a chance to watch it yet, just pause this video now and catch up with the first one. I'll be right here waiting for you when you come back. Now, you probably remember from that first video that I am a huge fan of Lego, because as entrepreneurs, there's so much that we can learn from that simple little brick. For example, when I was playing with my boys recently, I discovered an interesting parallel between Lego and applying the Ask Method in your business. You see, recently, my younger son, who's still very little, got a hold of my older son's Lego and completely destroyed his entire collection. Castles, fire trucks, pirate ships. Over 30 fully constructed Lego sets were reduced to rubble. The devastation was horrific. And after the tears went away, as a family, we were forced to have an epic cleanup session. And the question came up, how should we organize and bucket our Lego? Should we put pirate with pirate and castle with castle? Big pieces with big pieces and small with small? Or should we organize by color, separating red, blue, yellow, and green? Now, no matter how you decide to bucket your Lego, the one thing I think we can all agree on is this. Putting all your Lego into one big messy pile is not the answer.
We can always pause when somebody gives $2 in the tip jar. Thank you, Adam. Magnificent. Anyway, we'll keep going before people get angry. We're on a clock. 50 minutes.
And yet, this is how so many people treat their business and the market that they serve. They put everyone in their market into one big pile. Which leads us to the first big question that you're faced with in your business when you use the Ask Method, and that's this. How should you bucket your market? We're gonna be talking about that in this video. We're gonna cover how to build a successful, thriving business based on this one simple premise, taking people who land on your website and putting them into different buckets so that you can communicate with each of those most important groups of people in your market in a more targeted way. When people arrive at your website, they expect the product or service you sell to be exactly what they're looking for, to feel almost as if it were.
I just want to pause here just for 1 second, because I just want you to go through what's going through my head as I'm listening to Ryan do this part of the video. I'm trying to think in my head, okay, what are the 4 buckets for my particular market, right? I'm already thinking about, okay, how do I choose those buckets? Because if you've been following along with the challenge, you've been seeing that you can generate lots of different buckets, and it's so I'm really intensely thinking, I'm constantly listening to what he's saying and then mentally applying that in terms of, well, what does this mean for me? Okay. And if you're watching this and you're on the live stream now and you don't have a market yet, don't worry, because we're going to look after you. with that. So, right. So just, you could do it for a hobby, you know, pick a hobby or something that you're even vaguely interested in doing, so that, you know, instead of just passively listening, I just wanted you to know that what's going through my head is, okay, so I'm doing the challenge right now. What buckets are there? So I'm thinking, well, there's just what I mentioned. There are people who have a market that they've chosen to test, and there are people who don't have a market yet. And obviously, we need to cater for those two buckets. But then I'm thinking, well, what's the, you know, what are the other buckets? Because he mentioned in this video, there is an optimum number of buckets. So, and I'm thinking it's more than two, based on what I've just observed from what Ryan does. So we'll continue on. I just wanted to let you know what I'm thinking.
Are specifically designed for them. But remember, the secret is not necessarily about customizing the products and services you sell. The secret is about perceived customization. This is what the Ask method is all about, and today we're going to go deeper into how you actually do this. We're going to cover the 4 ways to put people into different buckets, and I'm going to walk you through the single most important thing to customize on your website once you know what someone's bucket is. Now, the Ask method is not about the next big thing or the latest fad that only lasts a few months. It's a timeless, proven methodology to find out exactly what people want to buy, and then give people exactly what they need based on their specific situation, rather than try to sell a one-size-fits-all solution, and do it without being slimy, scammy, or any hard selling. It's about asking questions and educating people about their specific situation. When I started my first business using the Ask method in 2008 in the orchid care market, I was able to take that tiny little business from nothing to $25,000 a month in just 18 months, and it's been running profitably ever since. Since then, I've used the Ask method to profitably enter 23 additional markets, generating a multi-million-dollar income working from home in the process. And more importantly, my students have now used the Ask method in hundreds of markets. And the best part? Imagine having something that you can build once now, put it online, and produce consistent, predictable income for you and your family month after month, year after year. An income that lets you live where you want, travel to all the places on your bucket list, and work from anywhere in the world. And have the kind of freedom that can't be measured in dollars, time to enjoy with your friends and family. I know for me, being able to spend time playing Lego on the floor with my 2 boys is one of the best parts of what I get to do. Now, I hope you join me in the Ask Method Masterclass, but no matter what, please remember, you'll have the biggest impact if you focus your entire approach on finding out exactly what your customers want and giving it to them. That is what this is all about. Now, I learned this the hard way through blood, sweat, and tears of building my own business, and I want to save you from that struggle, because there's a process that you can follow that makes things a whole lot easier. Now, let's go back for a moment to that point where I had just taken my first business from $0 to $25,000 a month in just 18 months by asking the right questions using the survey and segmentation process that I talked about in the last video. Now, at this point, I was thinking, okay.
I just want to pause there for a second, because this is a really good example. There's so much sort of fluff, right, in the marketplace, in the sense of, you know, $1 million launch days, blah, blah, blah. And they're all true, right? They are all true. But just Ryan's example, just totally real life example, 18 months to get to $24,000 a month, super realistic, right? You take an 18-month view of something, super realistic. Humans completely overestimate what they can do in a short period of time and completely underestimate what they can do in a long period of time. We are horrible at estimation, absolutely horrible. Now, there's something, and something I want to, and it was Darren pointed out, I tune out when hearing the lifestyle stuff. Very important for you to understand, Darren and everybody else, you are not your market. You are not your market. You're here with me, depending on what part of the world you're spending your evening with me, watching and building a business, implementing business. You are like such a tiny percentage of the population, it's not funny. So you see this stuff all the time, right? You see this stuff all the time in this marketplace. So yeah, you tune out a little with the lifestyle stuff. But if you leave it out of your stuff and you leave it out of your thing, like I'll give you an example. I'm doing a lot of music production at the moment. And before I buy a piece of gear, I am watching lifestyle videos up the wazoo of people who are using, showing themselves using the piece of gear and everything. And it's educating me and it's understanding, oh, that's what's possible. Okay, really cool. But you're here. You have to, yeah, sure. I've seen I've seen a billion lifestyle bits and I've seen 1,000 things, right? I'm jaded, but never, ever, ever, ever for 1 second do I think that I don't need to include that for the normal people, the civilians, the Jack and Jane Smith. Because another huge mistake people in this marketplace, when they're creating a business, they assume people are like them. We're all crazy. What the hell are we doing here? You're watching an Australian dude dressed in a superstar Adidas tracksuit live stream learning about a business. We're freaks. Okay? And that's cool. And that's awesome. And all the best freaks are here. But don't for 1 second confuse yourself with 95% of the world, okay? Where this stuff is absolutely vital. And I don't care whether it's orchids, I don't care whether it's music production, whether it's learning to do Ableton Live, or indeed learning how to do a workshop. If you don't give people reasons why they should be investing that stretch effort, you're going to be in all sorts of trouble. Now I've got to get cracking because we've got to make this move. Oh, and Brian K, thank you for your $2. Let's go for the Subway. We go for the Subway 1 foot as we're going, but I've got to move. We've got 50 minutes.
This works really well for the orchid market, but what if this is just a fluke? I was scared that something might happen in the market, so I decided to diversify by going into a second unrelated niche. I had studied neuroscience in college at Brown and had always been fascinated in the brain, so I decided to build a product and a website called Rocket Memory to help people improve their memory. I followed the same process that I had with the orchid business, running a combination of surveys to identify my most important buckets and then customizing my offer to each of those buckets. Once again, I started with no list, no product, and no connections in the market. And the results were even more amazing. In fact, within 3 years, we 10x'd our income following that same process, earning over $1 million a year. That's when I knew I was really onto something, and that if I could repeat those results successfully in this market, I could do it again in any market that I wanted. And not only was I confident, but I was even more motivated to keep going, knowing that I had a blueprint that would work over and over again in whatever market that I chose, as long as I just followed the steps and stuck to the process. I continued to test, tweak, and innovate until I had the process down to the point where I had templates and scripts and procedures for how it was all done. It became just a matter of simply executing the steps. Now, by this point, word got out, and CEOs of 7, 8, and even 9-figure businesses began asking me to implement the Ask method in their business. Brands like Dish Network, Agora, and Proactive. Companies started paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 up front, plus a monthly retainer and royalty on the sales that we generated just to implement the Ask method for them. Using the Ask method, I developed a segmentation quiz in the golf market that as much as 10,000 people take every single day, for what's now become the #1 golf instruction site online. In the weight loss market, using the Ask method, I developed an assessment for one of the biggest weight loss brands in the country that as much as 23,000 people take every single day. I went from living on less than $500 a month just a few years earlier to earning a multi-million-dollar income working from home. I began to see the impact the Ask method was having in market after market, and the power of putting people into different buckets and customizing their experience based on their bucket. Now, the reason why I'm telling you all this is not to brag. It's to give you a sense for what's possible for you and your business, and to give you the confidence that what you're about to discover is something that's been tested and proven to work in market after market. But just as I was beginning to feel like things were gaining momentum, something happened and changed my life forever. Shortly after the birth of my oldest son, Henry, I found myself exhausted all the time. Everyday tasks just wiped me out. I started mysteriously losing weight and had almost no energy at all. I chalked it up to being a new parent with a lot of sleepless nights, combined with the stress of being an entrepreneur working hard to build my business. Then, as a new dad with a young baby, my wife Tylee wanted my son to grow up without a dad or mother, which is freedom. But notice that freedom is not the top of the pyramid. And this is something that bothers me about our industry. It bothers me when people put freedom as the ultimate end goal for what it is that we're doing, because it's not. As an entrepreneur, it's not just about freedom. It's about what you do with that freedom, which leads us to the next level of the pyramid, impact. As an entrepreneur, impact is how you're transforming the world. Most people, the answer is also yes. So
now I'm skipping through this bit, not because it's not important for you to think about, it's because it's probably summarized in the workbook, and it's something that I completely concur with. So I don't need to watch it again, right? So I need to, like, there's no need for me to do that in order to complete today's tasks, if that makes sense.
So the question is, what happens when that's the case? What happens when niching down is not enough? I ran into this challenge recently when we introduced to the world what's become our flagship online training program, the Ask Method Masterclass. When we introduced the program, my goal was to produce 250 graduates in our first class. Instead, when we opened enrollment, we generated over $3.3 million in revenue in just 5 days and produced over 2,000 graduates in our first year. The response we received was overwhelming. It exceeded even our most optimistic projections. And I want to take you behind the scenes to show you how we did it, because our secret to success was actually using the Ask Method ourselves. Let me explain. When you think about it, the Ask Method Masterclass is already pretty niche. We teach entrepreneurs how to launch and grow your business online, get more leads, and build your email list by putting people into buckets so that you can better sell and better serve. And yet, when we applied the discovery phase of the Ask Method in our own business, we discovered 4 very different buckets in our own market who could benefit tremendously from the masterclass. Bucket number 1, entrepreneurs who are just getting started online and who don't really have an email list. Bucket number 2, entrepreneurs who already sell to a lot of customers and who want to scale further on cold traffic. Bucket number 3, professionals who serve a small number of clients in a deep way and want to get more leads online. And bucket number 4, consultants, agencies, and freelancers who do marketing for others or for whom this is something.
So this is obviously something that's very interesting, specifically to me. So that's why I just had a wow fact sort of hit me in terms of looking at potential buckets. For me, I'm looking at, okay, people who don't have an email list. Is that another potential thing for me to, so do you have a market? Do you not have a market? Do you have an email list? So when I'm thinking about applying this, maybe that's something. So that's definitely a note.
Something that they want to do. In fact, when you signed up for this workshop, before providing your email address, you were likely presented with a similar set of options to choose to determine your bucket and help us customize elements of this workshop for you. But in addition to identifying what bucket someone falls into, there's another benefit of asking one or more multiple choice questions like this before asking for someone's email address. And it has to do with the power of something called micro commitments, asking people to take tiny little baby steps on your website, one step at a time. Let me explain. When I studied neuroscience at Brown, I became fascinated with the work of Dr. Robert Maurer and the psychology of fear. I learned that whenever you ask someone to do anything or make any sort of change, the brain perceives that change as a threat. You actually trigger the fight or flight response in an area of the brain known as the amygdala. When you ask someone to opt into your email list and provide their name and email as the first step, the brain of the person on your website perceives that step as a threat, which is why they often either freeze or flee, or in other words, leave your website without providing their email address. But you can actually hack that fight or flight response by shrinking the size of the step or commitment that you ask someone to take, like starting with a simple multiple choice question before you ask for someone's email address. This is an example of a micro commitment. And when done right, it can actually increase your email opt-in rates. In fact, if you take a look, you'll see an example of a split test from our Visual Website Optimizer account. We're adding the additional step of finding out someone's bucket before asking for their email address actually increased our email opt-in rate significantly. In fact, running the same test
Bugger. Now I'm going to get 50,000 people in the chat saying there's no sound. Micro commitments. Wow. Okay, that is a big wow fact. Okay, so that's something that I am going to absolutely implement in this. So now we're cooking with gas. Let's continue.
Hundreds of times in the past decade, I've seen the same scenario play out in market after market. This is one of the rare cases as an entrepreneur where you can have your cake and eat it too. In other words, not only identify what bucket someone falls into so you can better sell and better serve, but also increase your email opt-in rate at the same time. Get more leads and build your email list faster in the process. And by asking a series of one or more non-threatening micro-commitment questions before you ask for someone's email address, it helps you understand enough about a person's situation so that you can put them into one of several buckets to customize how you communicate with them, the emails they receive, the sales copy they receive, and the ads that they're served in places like Google and Facebook. And the reason why this type of segmentation funnel is so effective to put people into different buckets is because the questions that you ask are all about your visitor's favorite subject, themselves. Asking the right questions demonstrates your understanding, authority, and expertise, and accurately describing their situation creates an instant connection and feeling of trust between you and them. And then, when you explain the transformation of your product.
So another wow fact is asking questions about themselves. It's not segmentation for you. It's not to make your life easy. It's about making segmentation for them, to make their life easier, to make the information you give them more relevant.
And how it relates to their specific situation, it creates a tremendous amount of desire to try out your product and experience that transformation for themselves. Because you're describing how your product specifically benefits them, not just in a generic way, but based on their specific situation. And the best part, when you do this, there's no hard sell involved. You're just teaching and explaining. And all you did was engage their curiosity and desire to know more about themselves by asking simple questions that lets your customer feel understood, while easing them into your world little by little. And by the way, don't worry if any of this sounds complicated. It's actually really easy to do. In fact, in video number 3, I'll explain exactly how to set everything up step by step, including the exact tools and software that makes it all super easy. Now, when we launched the Ask Method Masterclass following this framework of putting people into different buckets, we generated over $3.3 million in revenue in just 5 days, and over 2,000 graduates in our first year. And later in this video, I'll share a few other examples of businesses achieving similar results following the same process. But first, let's talk about the single most important thing that you want to customize on your website once you've identified what bucket someone falls into. It all comes down to 3 simple words: setting the frame. Let me explain what I mean by that. When you signed up for this Ask Method workshop, if you selected, I'm just getting started online and don't really have an email list, the content in your first video would be different than if you had selected, I already sell to a lot of customers and want to scale further. So for example, if you're just getting started, you would have heard me talk about students having success with the Ask Method who are starting in a similar place. Like Jamal Miller, who used the Ask Method in the early stages of his business to generate 10,000 leads online in just 10 days at 15 cents per lead, launching a new 6-figure business in the process. And Marina Kogler, who used the Ask Method to launch a new business while still working a full-time job, making $11,000 in her first month, enough to quit her job and pursue her dream of owning her own business. Versus, if you had selected, I already sell to a lot of customers and I want to scale further, you would have heard me talk about different students, like Will Hamilton, who used the Ask Method to scale his 6-figure online tennis training business to over $1 million a year through Facebook and Google traffic. Or Michael Lovich, who generated over $10 million using the Ask Method for his supplement company, generating as much as 14,000 email subscribers per day on cold Facebook and Google traffic alone in the process. Now, while each of these students achieved these results after enrolling in the same program, the Ask Method Masterclass, notice how the program was framed differently based on which bucket you might have selected. This is what we mean when we talk about setting the frame. And if you re-watch the first video in this workshop, you'll notice a handful of other places where the video was customized based on your specific bucket. Remember, it's not necessarily about customizing your products and services. It's about customizing how you communicate your products and services. In fact, as you go through each step of this workshop.
So for me, a wow fact there is, and there's 2 wow facts. Wow fact 1 is just the way that there are different obviously there are different videos, but then lifting the curtain, so to speak, is a great teaching methodology, right? It's great. That's a way of showing a testimonial, but doing it in such a way that it's teaching something. It's telling a story at the same time. So I loved that. That's something that I will absolutely be stealing. The second thing, of course, is just to notice, like, because I chose the beginners one, I didn't see those other 2 testimonials. So that's really interesting in and of itself. But it just goes to show, in this day and age, it's just we can't be one size fits all. Yeah, they're all using the same product, in this case Ask, but they're using it for completely different circumstances. Just like Apple sells the same laptop to that education market, the corporate market, and to consumers.
I invite you to pay close attention and look for the other places that appear to be customized. Sections of certain emails, segments in certain videos, certain case studies and success stories. What you'll notice is that it's not about customizing everything. It's about identifying just a few key elements that make all the difference in the world and customizing those specific touch points. Now, a mistake that people make when they begin using the Ask Method, especially when they're excited to get started, is they often either have too many or too few buckets. Now take a moment to write this down, because the sweet spot is to address 80% of your market in 3 to 5 buckets. And the reason for 3 to 5 buckets being the sweet spot is that if you have too many buckets, you're creating too much work for yourself. And if you have too few buckets, you're not taking full advantage of the power of the ask method. The reason for 80% is because there's always going to be a portion of your market which falls outside the buckets that you want to serve and focus on. We spend a lot of time in the Ask Method Masterclass identifying what buckets to focus on and which ones for you to ignore in your market. Now, when it comes to putting people into different buckets, there are 4 different ways to do this. And we're going to cover each of these 4 ways now, along with an example of each type to help you identify how you might bucket your market. The first way to bucket is based on journey. Let me explain. Journey bucketing makes sense if you're in a market where there is a linear success path for your customers to follow. So for example, if you're in the relationship market and you help single men meet women and marry their soulmate, there is a clear linear journey that your customer must make. The first step in the journey is learning how to approach a woman. The second step in the journey is learning how to carry on a conversation with that woman, then how to ask her out on a first date, and then on a second date, and third date, etc. And then eventually how to propose, and over time, how to maintain a healthy, successful marriage. As you can see, there's a clear...
So while I'm listening to this, I'm obviously thinking which one of these applies to me, right? So I'm looking at whatever these 4 things are going to be. I'm specifically asking myself, which one of these is going to apply to me? So I'm making notes as we're going through, and by the end of the 4 of these, the idea is to figure out, okay, which one am I?
Linear journey with key milestones along the way. And knowing where someone is on that journey can help you put them in the most appropriate bucket so that you can better sell and better serve. Now, an example of an entrepreneur and student of the Ask Method bucketing based on journey is Todd Herman. Todd is a creator of the 90-Day Year program, a planning and performance program for entrepreneurs. Todd found that there were 4 distinct buckets in his market. Entrepreneurs who hadn't yet started their business. Entrepreneurs who started but didn't yet have consistent sales. Entrepreneurs with consistent sales, but who are still the main driver of those sales. And entrepreneurs with great revenues who wanted to take their business to the next level. As you can see,
Love Todd Herman. He's like the professional tester. I think he promotes himself through being a professional testimonial person for everybody. But I think, from the challenge point of view, these buckets, this is screenshot territory for me, because that is the first part of that. See, for me, this is being very broad, so I need to think about that. So I'll keep going.
There's a clear linear progression or success path in Todd's market. Now contrast that with the second type of bucketing, which is bucketing based on challenge. Now in some markets, you don't see the same clear linear progression. There might be different challenges that people run into that aren't correlated with one another, or which don't happen in any specific order. An example of that is in the orchid care market. In the orchid care market, there are 4 main challenges that people run into. Getting their orchid to rebloom after the flowers have fallen off, knowing how and when to repot their orchid, saving an orchid that looks sick or dying, and what to do first with a brand new orchid if they're just getting started. Someone might have a challenge with reblooming and never need to repot their orchid. Someone might have a sick orchid with yellow leaves and have perfectly healthy blooms. So the best way to bucket in this market is to identify the specific challenge that someone is running into right now in order to better sell and better serve. Now in some markets, there isn't a specific set of challenges that people are running into, but instead there are different situations that people might be in. This brings us to the third way of bucketing, which is bucketing based on situation. Now an example of an entrepreneur and student of the Ask Method bucketing based on situation is Jeff Walker. Jeff is the creator of Product Launch Formula, a program for helping entrepreneurs launch new products online. Now what's interesting is that Jeff and Todd Herman both serve a very similar audience. Yet whereas Todd bucketed his market based on journey, Jeff bucketed his market based on situation. In fact, using this approach, Jeff found that there were 5 distinct buckets in his market. People who haven't sold anything online before, entrepreneurs who have an online business, experts who work one-on-one with clients, authors or artists who want to launch their work, and lastly, marketers who run online marketing for others. You can see that while there aren't 5 explicit challenges here, you can imagine that depending on someone's situation, they might run into a different set of challenges based on their situation. For example, an artist is going to face different challenges than, say, an entrepreneur with an online business, and so on and so forth. And this brings us to the 4th way to bucket, which is the hybrid approach. Now, in some cases, you might be in a market where it makes sense to combine more than one of these approaches together. For example, you might have 1 or 2 journey buckets and 1 or 2 situation buckets, which don't quite fit within that journey. In fact, we were faced with this exact situation with our buckets for the Ask Method Masterclass. You'll notice that the first 2 buckets are based on journey. entrepreneurs who are just getting started online, and entrepreneurs who are already selling to a lot of customers. And our second two buckets are based on situation. Professionals who serve a small number of clients in a deep way, and consultants, agencies, and freelancers who specifically do marketing for others. This is an example of the hybrid approach in action, an approach that we use to generate over $3.3 million in revenue in just 5 days when launching this program, and over 2,000 graduates in our first year.
Show
So the
off.
question is this: are these results a fluke, or is this a trend? Well, consider the examples that we just went through. Using the Ask method and the same approach, Todd Herman generated $2.4 million for his 90-day year program in just 5 days. Jeff Walker generated $2.8 million for his product launch formula program in less than 1 week. And you have entrepreneurs like Stu McLaren, who generated $3.5 million for his Tribe membership program, all using the same approach. And you have students like Ryan McKenzie, who generated 20,000 leads, 1,100 customers, and $26,000 in revenue in his first 5 weeks, now on pace to do over $1 million breath. Because we covered a lot in this video. And if it sounds a little overwhelming, that's okay. You don't have to jump in right now and do it all. Right
Yes,
now,
I do.
all you have to do is
Part
start
of the deal.
thinking about the possibilities that this information opens up for you. Because determining which of the 4 ways to bucket your audience is just the first step. Only one of the components of the Ask method. And I think you're gonna love what I've got for you in the next video. Because in the next video, the third video in this workshop, I'm gonna be pulling back the curtain on the full Ask method, walking you step by step through the entire process. The exact same process that I and hundreds of my
I think that
students
might
have used
take
to
me more
generate
than one
hundreds of millions of
CFT.
dollars across dozens of different markets. And I'm gonna give you the official Ask method blueprint so that you have everything right at your fingertips. Yes, you're gonna see the entire picture from start to finish in the next video. Once you see the whole
Oh, that's
blueprint for
unfair.
yourself, I think it'll be a lot clearer for you to see exactly how you can use the same process to build the kind of business and see the kind of success that you're looking to achieve this year. But for now, I wanna hear from you. Leave a comment below this video to let me know what your biggest takeaway was from this video. Tell me how you
All right. All right. Cool. Just going to finish up the video. I've got 18 minutes and 24 seconds left. I'm just going to have to stop sharing this baby. And then I'm going to have to start sharing my workbook. So let's bring that baby up. And let's do it quickly so we can get from. So from me, what I got from that, I need to think about, okay, well, how am I going to implement these buckets? And in particular, thinking about what the 4 buckets are. Now, let me just bring up this so you can see it. Okay, so you should be able to see the workbook now. Let me just double check in the chat. I've set myself up. Yes, you saw that. Great. You're giving me the whole blueprint in one video. How am I meant to do all of that? That's going to be a plenty of CFTs. All right, good. I've got you on the chat as well. Let's keep going. We've got a few minutes. Now, see, this is what I mean. This is actually really important. Great exercise for you to do. And it's wonderful to start thinking about legacy, impact, and freedom, and so on. But we've got to earn our first dollar. I'm a big fan of let's earn our first dollar, and then we can start working our way up from this pyramid. But it does answer why a lot of people, cynical people, ask, well, why do people if they're so successful, why do they teach? And it's because of this legacy and impact stuff. It's very real. It's why I do what I do. I love doing it, right? So that's important. So can your product or service help you sell more than one type of person? Well, most markets that I find, let's get some white there. Most markets I find definitely get that. So that's fine. Now, when they arrive at your website, or when they, in my case, where are people? So I'm thinking about, okay, in applying this, where are the places that people are arriving from? So yes, I have a website. All right, the good old Your First Dollar website. But I also have, just as important, a Facebook group for the challenge. I also have a Facebook page. Play this up a bit. Facebook page. And shortly, I'll have this messenger platform, which we've just started using. So when I think about when they arrive at it's not just a website for me, right? There's literally 4 places where I could implement this. Now, Civilian goes, oh no, it's overwhelming and everything. Let me tell you what we'll be doing. We'll be just applying it to one of these things. Oh my God, YouTube channel. Thanks, Betty. My God, yes, YouTube channel. Thank you. Very important. Super important. God, what a dick. And probably now that we're looking at this, Instagram. So when I'm looking at implementing this, and thanks Ryan for throwing me under the bus with giving me a whole blueprint for next week, right? I'll be looking at implementing the ask in one of these things, right? Because if you try to implement in all of them, it just won't happen, right? And again, it's a rookie mistake, but let's keep going because I've got 13 minutes and 40 seconds. This micro commitment stuff, and do you see why you don't need to have notes? Because going through all of this, right, this is a far better way to retain information. Just the process. Watch the video, make notes, wow facts, and so on, and then try and then go through the workbook, but get physical with the workbook. Scribble on it, write on it, right? Figure out where does this come in. And to me, this whole thing is a cool wow fact, right? And it just totally makes absolute sense. I teach this all the time. So core piece of information, 3 to 5 buckets. So I've got definitely, the way I'm thinking right now is I've definitely got 2 buckets. The first bucket is, has somebody got a market in mind to test? And the test is my terminology because most people think whatever market they bring to the challenge has to work. It has to be the one, or it's disaster and devastation. Adam's saying, I think from a technical standpoint and what we have so far, Messenger might be the easiest to implement. Adam, that's absolutely what my thinking is. I think implementing it first in Messenger is probably the way to go. I'm definitely thinking that. So they either have a market in mind or they don't have a market in mind. Because if they don't have a market in mind, how can you build a business, right? If you don't know where you're going to do this. And what I have to do is de-stress people. De-stress is what I have to do at this point, right? So when I'm thinking, and if you're doing this exercise yourself, you need to be thinking through about your buckets, right? Your stuff, right? And you're thinking through about your own thing. Okay, so markets in mind. So that's definitely a bucket. Now, I'm going to cheat. Seeing you're all here, time for you to work for your living. All right. People who've donated $2 though, that's totally fine. You don't have to contribute. But here's the deal. Let me ask you. You're all my. What other buckets could you see for the challenge? Remember, challenge is about people who are starting out. I'm not interested in helping people. Well, I love helping people who've got really established businesses. I have one-on-one clients that I do that with, but I'm interested very much in what other buckets do you see in my. For you guys, I'm seeing email, which is a note that I made. Do you have some sort of list? And a list, of course, used to refer to just email, but now it's, Facebook group members and it can be, you know, number of people subscribed in Messenger, and so on. So what do you guys reckon? What do you think are potential buckets for me? So let's have a look. Have no market, making, yes. Have you made money yet? Have you made your, and I suppose in keeping with brand, have you made your first dollar? Where are they in the journey? Oh, I like the nice use of the @ symbol there. That really shows up in the chat window too. Demographics is a potential one, right? So it could be, you know, what situation are you in? Are you retiree? And in fact, remember last week buckets with people starting a business, there was definite buckets, including veterans is another one. People who don't think they can actually start a business because they have no experience at all, have already done it once and starting again with a new market. Yes, started and it didn't work for some reason, or it just fizzled out. Started and fizzled. Okay. There's age group. Yeah, look, let's put it down. It's definitely a way, and in some markets that would be a big deal. That's another, you know, need a coach. So that's sort of a situational thing as well. There's also, you know, in my head, I'm thinking of things to do with various other methodologies. Yeah, too uncomfortable with tech. That would be it. People who could pay for extra, single, married with kids, retired, definitely. Technical skill level, yes, definitely. Tech skill level. Because that's a, like, if I think of the factors where people fall over, I suppose, yeah, in any business, but particularly obviously an online business, tech skills can definitely be a potential bucket. So that's good. Okay, we've got 7 minutes and 50 seconds. So let's keep going. But thank you for that. That's awesome. So let's bring that down just a little bit. So there are 4 ways to bucket. There's the journey bucketing, the challenge bucketing. Boy, did I get triggered when I heard the word challenge. It's funny. Situation bucketing and hybrid bucketing. Now, if you have, let's do this. Let's look at this as an exercise here. Let's choose a different color. Do you see how I'm now? I'm trying to verbalize out loud for you guys, but do you see how I would be doing this, right? If it was just me by myself, right? I'd be doing exactly the same thing. I'd be writing down stuff, because if thinking on paper is far more crucial, iPad to be technical, but thinking with a pen and iPad is far more important than trying to do it up here. Okay, so let's have a look here. Let's use the highlighter. Does that show up? Yeah, it does. Actually, let's use it just a different color. That'll work. Let's use a bright green. Okay, so let's have a look here. What buckets would these? To me, that's a journey bucket. Market in mind. So that's journey. Need a coach situation, I think. Yeah, because they've thought about it. They're in a situation where that is. Started and fizzled. Journey or situation? Could be journey, but probably, now I think about it, I'm inclined to think that's more likely situation. So I'm more thinking. Now, retirees is definitely a situation, I think, right? And same with other demographics like veterans. Tech skills challenge. that is literally different sticking points. Now that's interesting. On the definition of different sticking points, not having a market could have that. Aaron, you're absolutely right. The science is incontrovertible that you'll retain and implement far better if you're writing with pen and paper. So let's have a look here. Let's continue down. We've got 5 minutes. Your market's at different stages. See, for me, my stage that I'm thinking is all about beginners as a general rule. You know, that's the people I want for the chat for what I'm thinking about here, right? Which is the challenge, right? So I definitely want to look at that. So it's segmenting down those. So the challenge, ironically, called the challenge, right? What are the sticking points? Tech, definitely. No market, definitely. What are sticking points for you guys in the chat window? What are sticking points that you what you would call for somebody who's creating a business, right? No blueprint, love it. Pretty ashamed I didn't think of that myself. No blueprint. No, this tech is easy, Adam Tease. That's funny. Tech, no market, no list, no money. Yeah, no money / low budget. Wow, you could definitely put buckets just like that, right? Based on situation. So this is situation for beginners. Focus is as another one. Okay, focus. I'm liking. Are you liking this feel? I'm liking this. Okay, cool. So here's the thing, guys. I've got 3 minutes, right? I've got to choose something. So I think for my ask, I'm going to look at challenge. I'm going to look at low, no budget. No market. Like they haven't picked a market yet. Tech fear. What's the fourth one? Focus, I think, but I need a better word for focus. I'm going to use focus. I sort of know what I mean there with focus. Sort of like focus, can't make the time, focus, time, challenge, overwhelm, challenge, right? That I need to come up with better thing there. And then finally, blueprint. So they're 5 buckets that a beginner would challenge, which is really interesting because I think another thing that I could absolutely test is a different way of looking at this, which is the journey style, right? So the journey would be market. Do they have a market? Yes, no. Have they got a list? Have they made a sale? Are they starting again? I could do both. Mediating, find your center equals focus. So, hang on, what do we got? 50 seconds. 50 seconds. So there is, right, I could go this way. Different color. I could go with my market lists starting again. That would definitely be a test. But I am going to try this one first. On what basis am I making that life-altering decision? All the high fact finders are just having fainting fits right about now. Do not do the cryptocurrency. God blimey. Oh my God. But so this is the, are you in crypto? That'd be the last one. So there you go. I made a decision. I don't know if it's going to be right or wrong. I've got no value. Look at that. 50 minutes on the dot. So when Thanks Ryan drops basically the entire blueprint, I am going to use these 5 buckets and I think good old Adam is right. The smart place to implement and test this first would be in our messenger funnel because it's really nicely suited for it. Okay, but that's pens down. Pens down. All right, Edcoin. Oh, that's really cool. I prefer your dollar donations. If you found today useful, throw me $1. Make it rain for me in using the super chat, which I've never heard of before, and I don't know where that money goes, but it's nice of you to do that. But no, let's now I'm off the clock. Okay, let's talk about you guys. All right. What was your and Cherie, you might be right. Too many questions for Messenger. I may have to alter that. Right. I might have to alter it quite possibly. So that is that will be a thing. But here's the thing. It's Adam might be able to tell me in the chat. Timothy, thank you. I think I've got enough for my Subway sandwich for lunch. This is great. I think I've only got a half footer though. And Eddie would love a full footer. But no, seriously, what is your James DeLong? Good on you, Jimmy. Hey, I think I've got enough for a full sub now, so thank you. Now, seriously, what's your big insight from today, everybody? Like, there's well over 100 of you watching right now. So what's your insight? And for those of you watching the replay, what's your big insight from today? What's your big aha? Yes, letting me know how to get the money out of Google. That will definitely, I really will have to figure that out. Let's have a look. 1, ask for the survey before asking for the email commitment. Micro commitments. Yeah, micro commitments was a big one for me. Taking notes on the worksheet is a time saver and an excellent way of getting things done, get the creative juices flowing. The 4 ways to bucket, types of buckets. Eddie would love a full footer. Thanks for that, Visual. Oh, I love that. 3 to 5 buckets. I was thinking to 7 to 12. Yes, that was a good one. Survey list, many chat. You can have as many choices, branches as you need. Thank you for whoever put that in. I didn't think that was AT. Perceived customization, micro commitments. I am not my market. Such a good one, Dave. Do not disturb, using the do not disturb. Yes. Need to get customers to feel comfortable with you and micro commitments. You can do one training to fit everyone. Sorry, you can't do one training to fit everyone in your niche. I think you can do one training, but definitely one marketing funnel to get people in the training would be smart, I think. Meeting them where they are at. Micro commitments. I think I need an iPad. $5, Rosalie. Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you. That'll be 2 cookies and the Coke. No sugar. Example of buckets. Best to poll audience to find out what the buckets are. I thought it was 8 p.m. my time. I only saw a few minutes. Luckily, we have the speed up feature. Very good. Walking us through the CFT start to finish, giving me new ideas for potential markets, key elements. Can we all earn your first dollar as earn your first Edcoin? Oh, my goodness. A few more super chats and you'll get the drink. Lol, that's exactly right. Footlongs are $5 here in California. Thank you, Rosalie. I think they're a bit more expensive here. I think they're like $9, $10. But $1 in US, actually, now I think about it, you probably made me a multi-millionaire in Australian dollars. If this is in US dollars, woohoo! No. But anyway, thank you. So that is it for today. I hope that you got a lot out of this session. It looks like the next one might be an absolute mega sesh. It might involve a number of CFTs, because if he's dropping the entire plan in one video, my goodness, that's going to keep us busy. But you might see, I think ManyChat will be the way to do it, and on Messenger, because that's the quickest way I can implement it. And I think it'll be fun for you guys to actually see. I might even get Adam on to help me, who helps me with the ManyChat stuff. Now, the finding a market. Thank you. Finding a market. I'll finish on this note. I'll absolutely be doing a separate find a market stream. And indeed, what I'm thinking is what I'd really love to do is deliver it through Facebook Messenger, right? So you can go through each day and do your little bits, because I want to take all the stress out of it, because we're not finding a market for life, we're finding a market to test. And I think if we can do that, you talk about micro commitments. In education, micro commitments are super crucial too. So rather than just saying, hey, choose a market now, come on, don't be a wuss, right? I can build you up to that through a series of questions. And I think it would be very fun to do that in terms of using, I can see Messenger training being a thing, right? So that's the thing. So I'll be after some beta testers to figure that out. All right, folks, that's it. Before you go, don't forget to hit subscribe, bash the bell, bro. It's very important, like, so you can get notified of these YouTube sessions. Don't forget, every Sunday at 8 p.m. is our challenge update and our new drill for the week. So we do update anything that we've picked up and learned from doing the challenge during the week, and we do our new drill. We keep it short, right? It's, try to keep that session around 30 minutes. That is really, really important. Messenger, you can experience Messenger. I'll put in the show notes of this video, when we get to show notes, I'll put in a link, so you can click on that link and you can get all subscribed up to Messenger, and you can see what we're looking at. So we'll be doing that as well. All right, folks, awesome fun. I'm loving this, and thank you for your help today in helping me with my business, and I'm hoping you're thinking and following along as well. All right, so with that, and the find a market stuff is seriously mega priority, right? Because very important for us to do that. So don't worry, that is the number one priority for us. After we get the communication stuff going, that's the priority. All right, here we go. Let's do it. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll speak soon. Now, I can't even, where have I put my mouse in all my notes? Hang on, here we are. Here it is. Found it. Found the mouse. Okay, here we go.